Hello everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's MTPredictor video, I'd like to have a look at another example of our W3 or Wave 3 trade setups that's just unfolded on an Australian dollar, Canadian dollar, AUDCAD 4-hour Forex chart. I'd like to post this because one of our customers, I won't give his name, but he lives down there in Australia, basically reported it in to me as a sort of testimony of how hard it is sometimes to sit through trades to let them run. And it says the struggle I've been talking about in our customer training webinars about the psychology of trading. So we'll have a look at that in this video. Just remind you first that all examples in these videos should be considered as hypothetical. No trades are actually taken, they're just shown for illustration and training purposes only. Remind you there's a risk of loss in trading and investing. I'll be talking about losing trades in the video as well. And remind you that losses are an important part of any successful trading plan. So they can't be avoided, there always will be losing trades. Right, here's the trade setup that our customer in Australia wanted to talk about, and it's this TS4 W3 or Wave 3 trade setup. Just to remind you that a Wave 3 or W3 trade setup is just that. In other words, what we're looking to catch is, if I right mouse click, do the analysis, we're looking to catch the end of the wave 2 in Elliott wave terms that unfolds as a minor ABC, and you can see that's what it did here. And then we're looking for the market to make a strong wave 3 swing, and as you can see, that's exactly what the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar on this 4-hour time frame has just done. It's just reached the typical wave 3 WPT, which is our initial profit target. So why do we like these trade setups? Well, because as you can see here, the profit was approximately 6.7 or 6.5 times greater than the initial risk, and that's why we like these, not because they have a high success rate, but because they have a profit. Normally have profits that are much larger than the initial risk. Why is that? Well, typically the wave 3 is the strongest and longest in the completed 5-wave sequence. So let's just have a quick check of our higher time frame chart, just to check we're coming off a good start here, because remember we use our isolation approach to Elliott wave. We're not looking to trade or not looking to place an Elliott wave count on the chart all the time. We understand that markets are cyclical, and half the time they're basically random, so you can't really be doing anything. So we look to start our sequence when it's coming off meaningful higher time frame DP support and resistance. And on the daily chart, there wasn't anything particular down here, because if I place a DP off that last low, you can see it'd gone through it. However, if we go up to the weekly chart here, this is where the good support came in. Now remember, with our DPs, the first place is to look at the last swing into the high or low. So you can see fairly obviously that's the last major swing high back there in 2016. This is the last swing into the high. So we right mouse click off here and do DP, and you can see this is an area of support. So this would be an area of support for almost 2 years. But look what's just happened. Can we see this? The market has come down and has found support right at this weekly DP. So now when we come down to our 4-hourly chart, can you see how suddenly this low here is now coming off good higher time frame support? Our MTP trend is blue stroke grey, therefore again it's a good one to take. So let's place the analysis on the chart. And as you can see, the market got up to its first target really nicely. So in hindsight, this is a no-brainer and quite a nice trade to do. Obviously, you don't want to be taking these sell setups because you're looking to already in a long trade, and there's no real reason to then swap to a short trade, particularly as the MTP trend turned blue here. This VS setup here was a little early, and it wasn't in and around the sort of failure at a major high or low as I've described in other videos. So the hardest thing here is, let's just have a look at this as it was going, as it was progressing. So if we go back to here somewhere, here's your trade. You're now in a nice trade here. It starts to go with you. The first initial area of support or resistance is the DP off the prior wave B. So you think, there could be a little bit of problem as it goes through this particular level here. So this is a little bit of worry. So of course, if it gets up to this level, which it did here, you look at yourself and you think, well, do I want to try and take profit here? Psychologically, if you've had a few losing trades beforehand, which is very easy to do, then of course psychologically you want to be having a profit and you want to try and then lock that in. Of course, if you did, the profit would have only been very small at about 1.7R. So if you hold on to it, keeps on going up. You have other sell setups, which again could worry you. Of course, we've already said that this wouldn't be valid because we're against a blue MTP trend. So the next area, you might think, well, I'll place the DP off this high here and think, well, what happens if it gets up to here? If it does, then the profit would be about 3R. Perhaps you'd had 2, 3, or maybe even 4 losing trades previously, and you think, oh, that might be great to try and claw back some of my losses. So let's see what happens. You wait, and then suddenly it gets up to that level, and you think, oh, great. Do I want to take profit here? But of course, you know that your profit target is still already up here. So psychologically, it's so hard to hold your trade, or hold your nerve, and hold your trade as it runs through the full duration of the trade. So tempting to look to come out here earlier. Let's have a look at one thing that might have helped you. Because if I go back to here, can you see this is the last swing into the low? Do you see this? There's the major low. This is the last swing into the low. So if I right mouse click, place the DP off here, this is normally the area of major support or resistance. And can you see how that actually coincided with the area of your typical wave 3 WPT? So hopefully that would have given you a bit more confidence to look to hold this trade. But again, psychologically, it's really hard. Goes through it nicely, but then starts to retrace back a bit again. You've been up to about 4R profit, you're back to about 3.8R. Again, you see what I mean? It's so hard psychologically to then hold right up to this level. But what happens is if you did hold your nerve, held it right to the end, well, you're then rewarded with a 6.7, 6.8R profit. So that's what our customer in Australia actually basically wanted me to talk about, was that this was a trade he's just done himself. And he just wanted to report on how hard it was psychologically to go through the minor wiggles as a trade is progressing in your favour. It's so tempting to want to come out here with like a small profit, 1.6R, another small profit here, perhaps 3R, as again, particularly if you'd had a couple of losing trades beforehand. But this is why it's so hard, I think, trading, and why so many vendors make it sound so easy, but actually in reality trading is hard. Not necessarily the mathematics of what we do in MTPredictor, but actually the psychological games that the markets play with your mind as you're sitting through trades. So this is one thing that most vendors never ever talk about, and obviously they don't want to say that trading's hard, they want to sell their wares. But here at MTPredictor, we like to have a good old splash of reality, a real dollop of reality, in fact, and actually just remind you that actually trading is very hard. There will be losing trades, and then after losing trades, it's psychologically very difficult to then hold your winning trades through. But this is what MTPredictor is about. It's trying to give you the confidence to try and hold trades like this. So they won't all turn out as good as this. Obviously, that's a given because markets can go into the random phase. But the idea being is over time, hopefully you do have enough trades that do actually make these large R profits that make up for your smaller R, 1R loss trades that you've made elsewhere. So this is what I wanted to do in this video, just to show you, well, first and foremost, a great example of, or another good example of our W3 or Wave 3 trade setup and why we like it, because it has a high risk reward profit potential, but also to touch on and talk about the psychology of trading a bit and how sometimes it's very hard to hold your nerve and hold your trades as they run to their initial targets.